Good morning. Today's talk is once again about group magnetism. Many years ago, maybe 15, more than like 25 years ago, I was given an opportunity to take a very advanced course, meditation course, on the 7 laws of group life. And one of the laws was about group magnetism. So last week's talk and today's talk are excerpts from that particular meditation course. What I found interesting is 20 of us started out taking that course, and by the time the last lesson came upon us, there were 3 of us left. Very challenging course. But more than the course itself, it's the content. Trying to understand the content, trying to live the content. And that particular group of people, one of the elements we were charged with was the punctuality in turning the lessons in on time, something very simple like that. And if we didn't complete the lesson, turn it in on time, we were dropped from the class. And other issues also. If we didn't follow correctly, we were dropped from the class. As I listened to myself putting together this talk, and then looking at today's society, even spiritual groups, not to mention political groups. Political groups in this country that are going on today. This idea of group magnetism at the higher levels is so abstract. And my concern is that we should be getting closer as a humanity. We should be coming closer and closer to the manifestation and realization of the higher octaves of group magnetism. And it seems to be just the opposite. We're getting further and further and further away from the beauty, the power, the magnificence of creating channels between the physical groups and groups found on other planes. We have to create a pathway as a physical plane group to create like a tube or channel of communication in order to be inspired by groups that are on higher planes. If a group is concentrated on physical phenomenon, just the physical life, they will never be able to refine their consciousness to such a place that they can even record activity that is occurring in groups that are functioning on the abstract planes of consciousness. So what I'm sharing with today is not new. This is from the teaching, and the teaching we call the ageless wisdom. The ageless wisdom is doled out to us at appropriate times when the hierarchy thinks humanity is ready to begin the practice. So the doling out is first given to senior disciples, advanced students, advancing aspirants that are searching for higher knowledge. Once they create an environment in their personal life where they are ready to record and receive, or receive and record these inspirational energies, It also means that they are ready to put them into practice. But there's always traps along the way. And these traps are very real. And these are traps that we read about and hear about and even see on a day-to-day basis. The trap of vanity, the trap of ego, the trap of the concrete mind, the trap of glamours and illusions, the trap of all that condensed history of past lives that's stored in the permanent atoms and play out in the subconscious mind as the subconscious unfolds from year to year to year. So, I did really stop to reevaluate whether I should even continue on and give this morning's talk, or should I change the subject matter. And I decided, no, let's go on with it, because this is giving us an idea, planting the seeds of an idea of what we're going to experience in the future in terms of being part of the consciousness of a group. So last week I said that groups are located on different planes. If you're not aware of other spheres of consciousness, then you're not even going to understand this first sentence. What does it mean, located on different planes? Well, if you have built a modicum of contact between your concrete mind and your higher mind, it's going to resonate with you. You may not have hands-on experience or definitional knowledge, but something's going to resonate in you and excite you. It's like listening to a piece of symphonic music that you've never heard before. And you're not a musician, and you don't know how to read notes, and you don't know the different instruments in an orchestra, but the sound, the power of the music activates something in you, and you become excited. And that's no different than hearing a statement like this. Groups are located on different planes. It should evoke an excitement in you and inspire you to aspire toward having contact with groups that are functioning in higher spheres. We have groups that exist in the astral plane, groups in the lower and higher mental planes, and groups that exist even in the intuitional plane of consciousness. I said this last week, that sometimes there are people who belong to all four of these groups while they are in physical incarnation. For example, if you have an advanced consciousness, you can work with a group here in the physical plane, but part of your group is on the astral plane. Part of your group is on the mental plane, and a few are on the intuitional plane. The idea is to see the depth of group magnetism, of what it can become for you, and to experience. So when we are talking about group consciousness, we are not necessarily directing it to the physical plane only. Your success, your advancement depends on how many people you are related to on different planes of consciousness. When you build your antakarana, you're going to be able to do 2 or 3 things at one time. It is, for example, you're writing an article, and while you're writing an article, you are having a meeting that's taking place on the astral plane or the mental plane or even perhaps the intuitional plane. So you have a consciousness that is very active on a higher plane while at the same time you're writing an article. You might be instructing people and at the same time participating in activities going on in higher planes. In this way, we come in contact with our group members. Isn't this a beautiful way to think? Yes, it is. In the human being, there is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual magnetism. In each of us, as humans, our soul is the sun. Again, I'm repeating what I said last week. Repetition is very good. So we want to think again, when we think in terms of our soul, in this case, it's the capital S soul. That soul is our sun. When our soul, our sun, fuses with our etheric body, we become magnetic and people feel it. When our soul energy fuses with our astral body, we develop emotional magnetism. And people respect you and dedicate and devote themselves to your vision, to your plan. When the soul infuses with your mental body, you become magnetic mentally, and you become flooded by great ideas and visions. Now, when you are intuitively magnetic, currents of energy of sacrificial service are attracted to you. You have energy to serve. You dedicate yourself and you do heroic things. When a group is a group, and that's a several-hour talk in itself, when a group is a true group, and it develops magnetism, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual magnetism. Now keep track of this. Not just physical magnetism. Why not just physical magnetism? Because such groups will evaporate. For example, you take a look at what's happening with this movement of angry, antisocial, bordering on violent people that are now following a particular candidate that's running for the presidential election. Like attracts like. So we have masses of physical people drawn together, and what's drawing them together is anger. It is the result of the suffering that they have gone through, loss of jobs, poverty, not having homes to live in, severe and serious debt. And so all it takes is one person to begin to pummel or distribute these ideas over and over and over and over again until the angry public registers it. Says somebody now has the voice to speak what I'm feeling. The idea here now is listening to a program this morning on CNN with a wonderful interview where this fellow believes that this is just the start of a movement that's going to be like this, anti-government, anti-this, anti-that. It'll be very interesting to see. But that's the downside of physical magnetism. The upside is when such magnetism begins to grow spiritually and move into astral plane groups mental plane groups, spiritual plane groups. When this happens, the power of the spirit takes over. When I say it takes over, it is implementing the plan of hierarchy. So it is a powerful, powerful influence. And that influence begins to precipitate or descend into the mental plane groups, then the astral plane groups, and finally the physical plane consciousness. But if everything remains in the physical plane consciousness and there's no line of communication, contacting these higher plane groups, then it's the animal instinct takes over such physical plane groups. And they will eventually become so corrupt that they kill themselves off. Interesting. But what I want to do is focus on a group that's developing the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual magnetism. Such a group can do 5 things, or become 5 things. And the first is they become a force field. They attract the right people and they repulse. That group energy repulses the wrong people. This is how you can tell such a group is aligned with more refined energies. In that kind of magnetic field, certain people cannot survive. They feel icky and they leave or cause problems for the group if they stay. The magnetic force field destroys their stupidities and ego and vanities, and they feel it so painfully that they cannot stay. They leave. But the best thing for them is to stay so that the group magnetic force cleans them and heals them. But people don't like that. They want to congregate in anger and polarize people to think the way they're thinking. It's like my way is the only way. Yeah, it's very interesting. So in this kind of a magnetic force field, people that find themselves in that force field, they don't like it. Oftentimes, they feel touchy. And they will think that people don't like them. See, they're mirroring their own consciousness. But really, when you look at infinity, and this is from the teaching, really, when you look at infinity, who cares what you are? This is a little hazardous concept if you don't understand it rightly. So, the one thing to remember about this point is that group magnetism attracts and repulses. The second point is group magnetism heals. It heals. People come and they feel healed if that group has magnetism. There's a parable about an angel coming and agitating a pool. The angel was charging that pool with energy, and everyone who went into the pool was healed. The pool is symbolic of the magnetic force field, of the group. The pool symbolized disciples who were so beautiful that they had an aura 1/2 mile across when they walked together. But dark forces can enter such groups and destroy their magnetism so that they cannot accomplish their purposes. The leader of the group must be like a fox, to be very vigilant as to what is taking place and do whatever is necessary to take action to protect the group work. So that's group magnetism as a healing energy. 3, a group enlightens, this is number 3, a group enlightens, because group magnetism is nothing else than the sum totality of all the individual's aura, physical, emotional, mental, and intuitional, if that group has an intuitional body. When the group soul radiates through it, then the group becomes magnetic. When the group soul radiates through the aura of the group, then it becomes magnetic. Number 4, after illumination, the group magnetism opens a path to the higher members of the group who exist on different levels, different planes, higher planes of consciousness. Now, such a group takes on solar energy. That's number 4. That's after illumination. Number 5, group magnetism opens the chakras which are the etheric centers. Now, here's a warning. It is risky to go to such groups if they are really charged and have a unified force field of energy. And why is that? Under the pressure of that magnetic field, any cracks in your aura enlarge. If that person is not yet ready, if they have not prepared themselves to step into such a strong magnetic force field. So, unready people go nuts. I have watched this happen over the years. They come to the group with little mental or emotional cracks, and they stay for a few years, but when the group magnetism increases, they explode. Sometimes the person will leave. Other times the person will turn around and begin to plant seeds of doubt in the weaker members or even in newcomers. I've seen it all. It's very real. But it's a science. This is a science. And you really, if you can set aside prejudice and opinions and bias, any bias about people, you can just look at an individual as a physical, emotional, mental mechanism and see where the cracks are. This is why I was saying earlier, it's so much better if the person stays in a magnetic group like that, because they will be healed. That crack will be healed. This is a crack that, if, when it's not stimulated, can be there for many, many lifetimes. Imagine that you're carrying this crack in your aura, in your human constitution, and that you're bringing it forward, carrying it forward with you lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Now your soul is trying to pull you into such a group to heal that crack. The only way it's going to happen, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to jump forward 6 pages here, and I don't want to do that. But this is what's happening. So when you see people behaving in, maybe for the first few years where they love the group and they love the teaching and they love the members in the group, and then all of a sudden things begin to change, this is what's happening. That crack in their aura is becoming a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. If, on the other hand, they are practicing certain physical, emotional, mental disciplines, and they are bathing in the radiation of the energy that the soul is pouring forth into the aura of the group, what's happening now is that the crack has become so wide is that the individual recognizes something's wrong with themselves. And now they begin to see the value of the teaching, the value of the disciplines. Like when you study Agni Yoga, there may be, as a random figure, 600 disciplines in the Agni Yoga teachings that you can practice to heal these cracks. But if you're lazy, and this is where the interferences of vanity and ego and glamour and illusion steps in, okay, and stops the healing process. So this energy doesn't only crack their physical ailments, but also their mental and spiritual ones. So then, how can the group help them is the question. The answer is the group cannot help them until that person says, and this is a quote, "I am ready to undergo transformation, even though my personality may not like it. I want to release myself from my glamours and illusions so I can eventually become transformed." This is why the Agni Yoga teaching cautions us not to enter the path until we are ready. We don't want the unready people to crack. But this is what happens. I just have to say this. We live in a country of freedom. That's good for the most part. But when a person is permeated with their vanity and their ego, see, then that vanity, like a peacock, stands forward and says, "Who are you to tell me this or that?" And that person that is thinking, "Who are you to tell me this or that?" might be a leader that has 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people that adore her and are dedicated to her. And the leader says, "Let's go." And off they go, back into their cracked auras. And that's what's taking evolution, spiritual evolution, so long to happen because of the cracked auras. So many cracked auras. So if you are building a group, that you want that group to, the group membership, to build such a magnetic force field that it explodes in such a way to open up the windows or the doors to higher planes of consciousness, you must be very careful who you bring into the group. And this is exactly what Agni Yoga says. So this is not my, teaching. This is Agni Yoga teaching. Those that really love the Agni Yoga teaching, you can find this in the books. Some people would say you're being discriminative. Absolutely. No. In a positive way. So how does group magnetism increase? On 4 levels. It increases on the physical plane when the people labor as a group doing group projects. The second, I'm going to skip through some of this because of time constraints. The second level comes when with group respect and devotion. Each of the group members must respect each other. When there is respect and devotion, what happens? Magnetism increases because they're making soul contact. Contact with the sun, that capital S sun, that capital S soul. Number 3, on the mental plane, magnetism increases with simultaneous and unanimous meditation and study. And this is why at the beginning of the talk this morning, I talked about how this advanced meditation group was put together with 20 people. And by the time we got to the 7th, that was one lesson per year, by the way. By the time we got to the 7th lesson, there were 3 people left. Cracks in the aura. See? So we had to engage in simultaneous and unanimous meditation and study. If a group is not doing group meditation on the same theme, it is difficult to build a unified force field in the group. It is very difficult to do this in today's society, especially in the United States, because everyone is so busy, very busy with their jobs and many other things. They stay up late, they cannot get up early in the morning. It's not even easy to find 5 or 10 people to sit down at 6 a.m. every day and do the same meditation. Number 4, this is the last one, is punctuality is the next one. Now, punctuality is a sense of responsibility and also an eagerness to fulfill your obligations and tasks. That's just sense of responsibility as defined under the heading of punctuality. Punctuality means to perform your duties in relation to the duties of others who are depending on you. This is why Helena Blavatsky, that great woman, said, "A group is like a hand. All the fingers work together." Punctuality is a sign of discipleship. Having punctuality also means punctuality in your responsibilities and duties. From the teaching, God is the most punctual being, and everything in the universe is built on punctuality. The sun rises and sets just at its appointed time. This means that the sun and the stars are conscious of their duties and responsibilities, and they carry them out punctually. Punctuality is the quality of having awareness of what your duties and responsibilities are. Punctuality means, and this is very advanced, punctuality also means right feeling at the right time. Also, right appearance at the right time. Number 5. I thought there was 4. Spiritual magnetism is number 5. Spiritual magnetism is created by working on the hierarchical plan, studying the plan and the teachings of the masters, and then contemplating about your task in the plan. When you become a disciple, you are going to become more serious and more disciplined. You are going to start searching to find out why you are here. Spiritual magnetism increases also by thinking curiously enough about death. So if you're on the death and transition focus group, pay attention. Okay. People rarely believe that they will die. It's true. They do, particularly when you're 20 years old, or 30 or 40 or 50 or even 60. People rarely believe that they're going to die. But it is just a mile away. Don't kid yourself. It is just sitting there. It's just waiting for you. And when you think about it, you become very solemn, and then you become very panicky. But group magnetism is fantastic because it will help people die peacefully. If someone is dying and you bring a few group members to him, group magnetism opens the way for that soul to go and to unite him or herself with the group members on higher levels. So magnetism means unity. Once, when a teacher was lecturing and the group magnetism was high, someone came in 20 minutes late and made a noisy show of their entrance. The whole group magnetism disappeared. Even blowing your nose loudly can destroy group magnetism. Sometimes one person thinks about someone he hates, and group magnetism is destroyed. All these things channel negative energy into the group magnetism. See, it is so subtle. So it is group magnetism and a common goal that really holds a group together. But we can see that there is much more. The greatest efforts of the masters are to create groups, magnetic groups. And this is why, because we are going to be the radio and television sets of the hierarchy. How can we be a television set if some of our circuits are shorted out or not working? It's like our webinar. Every Sunday we have a webinar. Some Sundays when our recording team that's so dedicated and so patient and so enduring, when they come in, nothing is working. The internet is down. We're out in the country, of Prescott, and getting internet service out here is very difficult. We had to get a subscription to only one place in town that will reach out here. And it's probably the most expensive service you can get. And even then, sometimes it doesn't work. Or something is unplugged with a machine, or like we had to go through the last, seemed like forever, where our recording system was not working. So we had to spend hundreds of dollars to get it fixed, which never fixed. And then we spent another more hundreds of dollars to get a new piece of equipment. How can we be a television set if some of our circuits are shorted out and not working? There would be then no way to communicate, with the world. That is why they say that a unified group is the outpost of the consciousness of the masters. See, our recording team did not give up. They did not give up. And they're all volunteers. They're not getting paid. And they spent hours during the week. They would get together and they would meet and they'd try to resolve the problem. The dark forces failed. The master pours his or her energy, wisdom, and enlightenment into the world because there are radio or television receivers there. The unified groups. We're going to go over this morning. I will go through this quickly. I've already jumped through quite a bit, but I've kept the most essential. There are certain virtues, basically, let's say 5 virtues, that a group must together cultivate, and also to pay their debts to each other. This is part of the group process. So these 5 things are very important. The first is that every group member, if he has the consciousness of group membership, must bring something to contribute to the group, such as artistic talents, leadership talents, editing talents, computer talents, and so forth. All these talents make the group magnetism stronger and more powerful. Groups are not formed for people to join them and take things from them. Groups are formed to create conditions in which its members can contribute something. Number 2, in groups we learn tolerance. Groups are formed to make people tolerant. This is so important. Many things happen in families and groups and so forth, and these things stimulate our anger, our fear, and irritate us. Then we start hating each other and creating separatism within the group. It is so important to see each other's shortcomings, weaknesses, and stupidities, but to be tolerant and keep the friendship and toleration. That is why a group is called a group, because it has discipline. 3, groups evoke within us a tendency, a power to control our thoughts, our words, and actions. So we shape up our thoughts, words, and actions until they fit the needs of the group consciousness. If you take things this way, your family and group relationships become better, and you become better citizens. You are trying to fit your thoughts, words, and actions in such a way that it brings the greatest benefit to the group. Number 4, to learn harmlessness. It is very important, for by learning harmlessness, we increase the magnetism, the power of the group. Harmlessness means that you in no way make people there's so much to say here, to make people feel lesser than they are, okay, to hurt people, to put them down as insignificant to yourself. The list goes on and on. It is really difficult. So you must ask yourself, not somebody else, but ask yourself, am I causing some kind of friction, some kind of pain and suffering or delay in the progress of that individual or that group? So we are here to learn that. But we make many, 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 many mistakes until we get it right. The 5th is sacrificial service. This is something we can learn in a unified group. No one enters into a higher state of consciousness until he proves that he can give everything that he has, that he is, and that he knows. Now that's going to scare the hell out of a lot of people. But Christ said something very beautiful. He said, you cannot find yourself until you lose yourself. See how far humanity is getting from the teaching? To start losing yourself is to find the science of sacrifice. Are we really making efforts to learn how to lose ourselves? This is the greatest difficulty and problem on the path of our transformation. And then I just threw this in, and then I'll close, is about speech. How can we learn to speak to each other so that it will not cause problems? This is a tremendous study. But these skills cannot be taught. You just have to try, have successes and failures, and eventually learn intuitively how to say the right thing in the right way at the right time. Each person, each of us must learn how, through our striving, our efforts, through our observation and experience, how to talk. And that's it. And what I have shared this last 2 Sundays is really the tip of the iceberg. You know, you can just take one sentence or take one idea, meditate on the idea, and begin to recognize the depth of group magnetism. and go to the teaching.